Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the Chief Creative Officer and Chief Marketing Officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.
The Sparkfile podcast may contain profanity and other adult content.
Please use your discretion.
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Welcome to the Spark File, your one-stop treasure chest for creative inspiration.
I'm Laura Camion.
And I'm Susan Blackwell. If you're joining us for the first time, welcome. If you're joining us for the 57th time, welcome.
Welcome.
You may be asking yourself, what exactly is a Spark File? Where do I get one? What do I file in it? These are such good questions. We have got such good answers.
A Spark File is a place where you consistently collect all your inspirations and fascinations.
Here's the deal. We are makers who make all kinds of things.
If you're like us and you're making stuff all the time, or if you want to be making stuff all the time, you know that the wellspring of inspiration can sometimes run a little dry.
So we're on the lookout for fresh ideas, images, and inspiration that spark our creativity and pique our curiosity, things that inspire us to get up off of our asses and make things like this podcast.
Or alternate reality retellings of stories we thought we knew.
Or a quest that beckons hundreds of thousands to join in an adventure.
Ooh. Every episode, we're going to reach into the Spark File and exchange some sparks. And from time to time, we're going to talk to some folks who spark us as well.
And if you're not careful, you just might get your brain teased. So without further ado, let's open up
the Spark File.
Hi, Cam.
Hi, Blackwell.
Hello,
Blackwell.
I'm so happy to be here with you,
I'm
sparking it this morning.
Excited. I look forward to these sessions with you for days. I really do.
I do too.
Get so excited.
This is so much. I mean, we try to keep it light and fun, but so much research and writing and preparation goes into this moment where we can just like set it free and leave it all on the dance floor. And I love it.
That's right. It's super, super fun. And then half the time when we're talking otherwise, I'm like, oh God, I want so much to tell you about things that I've discovered and found. I'm like, I can't.
We just have to keep it in the safe, like we talk a lot about our personal lives. We don't talk a lot about potential sparkage.
You know what I'm realizing? Like, I know there's a term for it. It's that delayed gratification. That's what it is. We're training ourselves in delayed gratification.
It's a good practice.
We all need that. We all need to know.
Are you ready to get your spark on?
You kidding me?
Let's cut to it.
Ready. I believe you're up first.
I believe I can fly. Oh, R. Kelly. I started watching that.
Damn it.
Surviving R. Kelly. Have you watched that?
No, I can't.
I don't blame you. It's pretty like densely just hardcore. It's just like the hits keep on coming. There's not a lot of lightness in that. Justifiably so. It's a very heavy story and a very heavy topic.
That's right. And I feel like what I already know about it is all I need to know.
Yeah. I will say this. The one thing that I find very uplifting, the people who had the courage to come forward and really talk on the record to the filmmakers, but also to the authorities.
That's right.
That's significant. And I heard an interview with the filmmaker. Her name's Dream Hampton. Mm-hmm. And I loved what she had to say. Mm-hmm. I thought she was great. Mm-hmm. I just thought I was very inspired by her. And I don't know, just her thoughtfulness. I just thought she was tremendous.
I think the persistence and like perseverance of all of the people who are trying to tell that story. I didn't mean to be cavalier when I said I know all I need to know. I just mean the grim details. I believe these women and just want their story to get out and be heard more.
Yeah.
But it bothers me just how hard it is for their voices to rise above and be heard by anyone, because we just live in a culture we're so smitten by fame.
It is so interesting to me. But how did we get here? Oh, because I believe I can fly.
That's right. Look what you did.
Look at the dark spark tangent I took us on. But let's jump into this.
Let's jump.
This is not a dark spark.
Oh my God, not a dark spark.
Not a dark spark. Ooh. So this was my spark. Come on. This is my spark. Wait, this is my spark. We all have an Indiana Jones hidden inside of us.
Ooh.
We want some adventure.
Yeah.
That's my spark.
Yes.
Sources for this spark include a great article by Julia Glum on money.com, our good friend Wikipedia, articles on atlasobscura.com by Eric Grundhauser and Shoshi Parks, and a piece on kqre.com by a reporter named Jeannie Wynn. So this is an OG spark that I first encountered when I was about 10 years old.
Ooh.
And my brother, John, was about 11 years old. We read somewhere, and it might have been like National Geographic or Smithsonian Magazine or Parade Magazine, one of those things that we had in our house. We read about a book called Masquerade by a person named Kit Williams, and it totally seized our imagination. Any of those words mean anything to you?
Well, I was struck by the fact that, of course, you had like the go-to, the National Geographic. We had a set of encyclopedia that's like, it was a source of entertainment as a child. Like, we're back in the day.
When
we didn't have
bored,
500 cable channels.
When I was bored, I would always, there was a volume of the Encyclopedia Britannica that had plastic. The pages weren't paper. There were just a few pages that were plastic.
Yes.
They were transparent, and they had like the bodies and the muscle. And I loved going and looking at those pages.
Oh my God.
That was some deep boredom though.
You know, we had a copy of the JFK report. What was that? The Zapruder. What's the name of it?
Zapruder film? Zapruder is the film.
That's the film. So this was the report, and it was like a book. And so I remember laying on the floor looking at like, this is so morbid. These were not supposed to be dark sparks, but let's mention this. I would look at the photos, like they have the still frames of like when the bullet hit his head and
you would just
landed on Jackie.
When you were bored.
Yeah, as a kid. Look at this.
Did it scare you?
It didn't scare me, but I feel like that. And I originally, when I was born on Long Island and I went to JFK Elementary School.
Yeah.
So a combination of very strange things lead me to believe, like, I feel like I have a connection to this family. And I'm like, you don't. You had a book and you went to a school.
That's magical thinking. So we were obsessed with this book, Masquerade. And to the casual observer, Masquerade just looked like a children's book with elaborate sort of illustrations and paintings. But Masquerade wasn't just another beautiful children's book. It concealed clues to a treasure hunt that was said to lead seekers to a jeweled golden hair created and hidden somewhere in Britain by its author, Kit Williams.
What?
Yes.
Wait, this was for children?
It looked like a children's book. It looked like a beautiful, very elaborately illustrated / painted picture book, but really it presented a set of clues that could lead you to a real life treasure.
I'm already deep into that fantasy.
It is.
I can imagine what it would do for your mind. Oh my God.
But imagine you're a little kid and you're like, we could solve this. We could find this treasure.
I'm booking an airline ticket now. Let us go.
The igniting spark for Kit, the author, was a challenge that came from a publisher to do something that no one has ever done before with a picture book. Then Kit Williams set out to create this book of 15 detailed paintings that readers could study carefully rather than just flip through and discard. So it was a way of getting people to engage. It was like a whole creation he made.
So smart.
Yeah, it was, from what I can tell, well, we'll get to it,
Okay.
but I think he might have been the first person to do something like this, just specifically like this. So the OG spark for Masquerade came when Kit Williams was a kid. He said, I recalled how, as a child, I had come across treasure hunts in which the puzzles were not exciting nor the treasures worth finding. So I decided to make a real treasure of gold, bury it in the ground, and paint real puzzles to lead people to it. If I was to spend 2 years on 16 paintings for Masquerade, I wanted them to mean something.
Oh my God.
Isn't that something?
Oh my God.
We'll post pictures of what Masquerade looks like so you can
Okay.
see how elaborate these paintings are. So the story follows a rabbit named Jack Hare who seeks to carry a treasure from the moon, who's represented by a lady, to her love object, the sun, which is represented by a man. On reaching the sun, Jack finds that he has lost the treasure, and the reader is left to discover its location somewhere in Britain. Isn't this crazy?
Oh.
We were obsessed when we were little.
Oh my God.
Along with creating the book, Williams crafted a hair from 18 karat gold and jewels in the form of this large filigree pendant on a chain, and he sealed the hair inside a ceramic hair-shaped casket. And that was to protect the prize from the soil, but it was also to foil attempts to locate the treasure with a metal detector.
Wait, what was it made of?
Ceramic.
Ceramic.
Shaped like a hair, containing
Oh.
this gold
Yes.
and gemstone encrusted hair pendant. And then he said the casket was inscribed with the words, I am the keeper of the jewel of Masquerade, which lies waiting safe inside me for you or eternity.
Oh,
Isn't that
my
crazy?
gosh.
It gives me chills.
You must have been freaking out as a child.
I remember my brother and I having a conversation where we were like, what could we figure this out?
And did you? How far did you get? I need to know.
We probably spent a good quality 25 minutes on it.
I thought you were going to say like 2 summers.
We were probably like, and then we forgot about that and went
Like,
and looked
oh,
at the
this is
Encyclopedia Britannica. So on August 7th, 1979, Williams and a witness secretly buried the hare's casket somewhere in Britain. Williams then announced that his forthcoming book contained all the clues necessary to decode the treasure's precise location in Britain within a few inches. At that time, the only additional clue he provided was that the hare was buried on public property that could be easily accessed. And to ensure that all readers, including 2 little kids in rural Ohio, had an equal chance of winning, Williams also announced that he would confirm the first precisely correct answer sent to him by post. So you didn't have to be in Britain to say you cracked the puzzle and claim the prize. The book Masquerade sold hundreds of thousands of copies worldwide, many in the UK, but also in Australia, South Africa, West Germany, Japan, France, and the United States.
Wow.
Yeah, it's crazy. He really created a genre.
I could say that, like, that's obviously that would create a phenomenon. I mean, now the Elf on the Shelf and those books that like encourage you of like buying more things. It's like strategic in its thinking.
I don't know enough about the sparks that created those, but I don't know if it was like a marketing plan. I don't know. If
Exactly.
It was a housewife in Nebraska who was like, I love this thing. I do it with my kids. I don't know what the answer is, but I love how this was born out of something that when he was little, he was like, I wish this was more. I wish this treasure was real. I wish this puzzle was better.
Yes.
And he was like, he kept that spark cooking for a long time.
Like engage people in a genuine way, engage their minds through his artwork, through the stories, through the clues.
Yeah.
It's
good.
legit.
So, solving Masquerade. So the complex solution involved, you took the book, you had to draw lines from the eyes of the characters in the direction they were looking to their fingers, and that line then pointed towards letters in the book. And then those letters would spell out the location of the golden hair, a spot marked by the shadow of a cross at noon.
What?
But the shadow only landed on this spot like it was during 2 times a year. It was tough. There was no way a 10-year-old and an 11-year-old were going to like put this one together.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
In March 1982, Kit Williams received a sketch which he recognized as the first correct solution mailed to him.
No way.
He immediately phoned the sender and instructed him to dig for the hair. He realized that the person who claimed to have cracked the treasure had not solved the puzzle in the intended manner, but appeared to have blundered into a lucky guess.
Because you had to show your work, kind of?
I think what they sent was a crudely drawn map of the general area.
And he would take that as final answer.
He took it as final answer.
Mm-hmm.
But very shortly after that person was awarded the prize, Kit Williams received the correct solution sent in by 2 physics teachers. And it was then discovered that the original winner had not cracked the clues. They had cheated.
How?
They had contact with a former live-in girlfriend of Kit Williams, the author of Masquerade. Her name was Veronica Robertson. And back in the day when she was living with Kit Williams and he was like formulating this and making Masquerade, she learned the approximate physical location of the hair while remaining ignorant to the proper solution of the book's master riddle. So the cheaters learned this information. They drew a crude sketch of the location, which they then submitted to the author, and he acknowledged as the first correct answer.
Boo. Boo to cheating.
Boo. And he felt, and Kit Williams, I think, was really
I feel a betrayal on many
bummed
levels.
out about that. Apparently, it's hard for me, based on what I've read, it sounds like the 2 physics teachers who really did figure it out through the clues went there and even started to dig and didn't realize that they had actually found the casket of the hair. They didn't recognize it as the treasure. Like they sort of discarded it in a pile of dirt. And I think the winner went back and was like, with Kit Williams' instructions, went back and was like, oh, there it is.
No way. The timing of that, just that it would still be where they left it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
But it was like boom, boom. It was shortly thereafter.
Wow.
But
what was the value of it? Like, was it?
I don't remember.
The value was in the solving of it.
I think that it did have real value, but the value was in the solving of it, the thrill of the chase.
Like most of life's treasures.
It's not the destination, it's the journey. But despite the scandal, the book became the inspiration for an entire genre of work known today as armchair treasure hunts.
Come on.
Yeah. So he not only created Masquerade, the book, the paintings, the hair, he created a genre.
Did he do another one himself?
He did. I'm not going to dive deeply into it, but he did. And he actually, let me tell you about it in just a second.
Okay, great. I'll wait.
So since Masquerade, a number of titles have been released in the treasure hunt genre with prizes ranging from, this turn of phrase is not mine, but I love it, with prizes ranging from day making to life changing. Among the more notable titles.
Wait, I need to let that sink in.
I know.
For
so
a second.
sometimes it's just little, smaller
Made my
prizes.
day.
Yeah, to
That
absolutely
changed my life.
life-changing.
Wow.
Among the more notable titles, there's The Secret, which is a high fantasy themed book from 1982 that was meant to lead to 12 keys, which could be redeemed for jewels. Only 2 of the keys were ever found, and people are still looking for others to this day.
Hold on a second. Is that related to The Secret? Like,
No.
It's not at all.
No.
Okay.
The
Got it.
the Oprah Winfrey's, like, if you speak it, you can dream it. You can make
that
it
sort of-
manifest.
Yeah.
No, has
Not
nothing
at all
to do with
related.
It. Nope,
Okay.
Nope. So only 2 of the keys were ever found. People are still looking. Byron Press Byron Priest, the original author and person who hid the prizes, passed away in 2005. So the exact location of the remaining prizes is likely lost. But people are still searching, and they believe that one of these keys is in one of the 220 parks in San Francisco. And in fact, the San Francisco Recreation and Parks Department recently created a new program called the Treasure Rangers to allow treasure hunters to dig while ensuring that irrigation lines and flower beds would remain undamaged in response to this.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's smart of them.
So
let's embrace it, but also make sure they can do this safely.
They received a request for somebody, a treasure hunter wanted to dig, and they, instead of being like, oh no, they were like so charmed by it. They said they've decided to lean in, and they created this program.
That's sweet.
Isn't that sweet?
So sweet and so
they were like, in
rare.
a city, in a big city, there's a lot of problems. This is not one of them. This is cool. So I loved that they like took the ride too. And they pulled from the ranks of the city's park rangers and gardening staff and created the Treasure Rangers. And the Treasure Rangers are assigned to treasure hunters for 1 hour at a time. If a searcher comes up empty-handed after 60 minutes, they have to apply for a new permit. And if you want to search Golden Gate Park, which is where they think one of these keys is hidden, if you want to search Golden Gate Park for hidden treasure, you can go online and fill out the secret treasure hunt dig request form on their website, and then you can schedule your time to go dig for 60 minutes for treasure. Isn't this the greatest spark?
My mouth is wide open, like aghast. I think that is so cool.
Isn't that cool?
Just that they embraced it. They're encouraging it. They're allowing it. It's so
I love it.
fun.
I love it. I love it. There's also a book called A Treasure's Trove. It's a 2005 fairy tale puzzle book that hid the location of 14 artifacts, which could be redeemed for $1 million in jewels collectively.
Hello.
So life-changing, right? Subsequent armchair this is a toughie.
You got this.
The subsequent armchair treasure hunts have been created, making use of technologies that were unavailable when Masquerade was published, such as the web-based Menagerie, the CD-ROM-based Treasure Quest. Do CD-ROM still exist? I don't know.
I'm getting on that one.
Text for Treasure, which uses text messaging. Other followers. Sorry.
VR now.
Oh, VR would be interesting. Also, you asked earlier if Kit Williams ever made another version of it. I think he might have done another book, but he also did he did something. It was a game. It was a Hare's Quest or something like that. It wasn't good though.
Okay.
People thought it was actually sort of, it was not well received, shall we say.
Got it.
Others follow Masquerade's use of physical media for the main puzzles, but provide additional clues online. So this has really become a thing. But the armchair treasure hunt that is currently the granddaddy creating quite a ruckus was created by a man named Forrest Fenn. Do you know that name?
I don't know that name, but it's awesome.
It's a goodie. The title of the book containing clues is called The Thrill of the Chase, a memoir. But apparently you don't even need the book to solve the hunt. You just need this poem, which you can find on the internet, but I'm going to save you a Google because I'm going to read it for you right now.
Oh, please.
It's called Fenn's Poem, written by Forrest Fenn. As I have gone alone in there, and with my treasures bold, I can keep my secret where, and hint of riches new and old. Begin it where warm waters halt, and take it in the canyon down, not far, but too far to walk, put in below the home of Brown. From there, it's no place for the meek, the end is ever drawing nigh, there'll be no paddle up your creek, just heavy loads and water high. If you've been wise and found the blaze, look quickly down, your quest to cease, but tarry scant with marvel gaze. Just take the chest and go in peace. So why is it that I must go and leave my trove for all to seek? The answers I already know. I've done it tired, and now I'm weak. So hear me all and listen good. Your effort will be worth the cold. If you are brave and in the wood, I give you title to the gold. That's it.
Ooh.
That's it.
Okay, pause. Where would you start? I had an idea of where I would start if...
Well, I'll tell you this.
Okay.
It's in the Rocky Mountains.
Oh, shit.
It's in the Rocky
Mountains. You already
Mountains.
know.
Yeah.
Okay. Who's brown? Like under whose...
There's a lot of speculation. And I will tell you, well, let's get into this.
Okay.
This
Dig
goes,
in.
there is, it could be a place in the river where brown trout exist.
Oh,
It could be a
Brown
family
is so common.
with the name of
Yeah.
Brown who has a house. It could be
That's
a trail with the word Brown or some variation like the Oak Trail,
Brown bear.
Yes.
Like
got it. There's
shit.
yeah.
That's
it gets deep and it's a lot. It covers a lot of states. The possibility. Yeah.
Sure, the Rocky Mountains.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
No,
I need to know everything.
So here was Forrest Fenn's initial spark. In 1988, he thought he was going to die. And Forrest Fenn is this self-made man with no formal education. He's an Air Force veteran turned fine art collector. And he had been diagnosed with kidney cancer, and doctors told him that he faced an uphill battle to survive. So one night he's lying in bed, he's thinking about his imminent death, and he began thinking about how much he'd loved assembling his art and artifacts collection over the years. He's become a really successful collector of fine art and artifacts. Then, in what he'd later write was a perfect match of mind and moment, Forrest Fenn caught a spark. And he thought, why not let others come searching for some of it while I'm still here and maybe continue looking for it after I'm gone?
Wow.
Yeah, big spark.
That's like, I'll leave a legacy. Like
Legacy. I feel like it's so much of it is about legacy for him. So Fenn, as his words were, he paid way too much to buy this cast bronze chest, and it looks like a little treasure chest. It's beautiful. And he transformed it into what he described as an opulent cache. He filled it with gold coins, 2 gold nuggets weighing over a pound each, these ancient figurines, Chinese jade, a 17th century emerald ring, several small diamonds, a silver bracelet encrusted with turquoise, and a 20,000-word autobiography sealed in a jar and written in a font so small that the finder will need a magnifying glass to read it. Legacy. The estimated value of the treasure I've seen quoted between $1 million and $5 million.
Well, and with some of those things in there, they're only increasing in value.
I would think.
You know,
and also,
there's something ancient figurines and things.
There's something about the all of them in total combined with the story. And the hunt that I feel like elevates it into this whole other, it's like a whole other thing.
And all of it kept together will be worth more, I would imagine.
I would think so.
Wait, so has anyone found it?
Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Sorry.
So he had, he was going to die. He had this idea. He made the treasure, and then Forrest Fenn lived.
Wow.
He lived. And around 2010, Forrest Fenn drove into the mountains. He hiked some distance and he left the chest in a secret spot that he said was very meaningful to him. He told no one of his plan, not even his wife of 57 years. He said it was very personal. It's something he wanted to do for himself and something he didn't want to be talked out of. And I really have to say, there's something about that spirit of creative action. Not like, I'm thinking about starting a podcast and like telling a lot of people. There's something about having a spark for a painting, for anything, a piece of choreography, whatever it is, and being like, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm going to do it.
That's right. For so many reasons, the power in just doing it, but also just not opening it up for comment.
Nobody else gets a vote. Nobody else gets a vote on this.
That's it.
And so that's what he did. Now, sometimes just counter argument. Sometimes it's helpful to talk things out to.
No shame in it.
No shame in it. But I loved that he didn't tell anybody. He just fucking did it.
Sometimes I think it's a bit about trusting your instinct. If you suspect that you're surrounded by people who may tell you it's a crazy idea, or maybe you should think more about it, and maybe that doesn't make sense, et cetera, then trust your instinct. Keep it to yourself. But if you're surrounded by people that you believe will encourage you to varying degrees, by all means.
Forrest Fenn in an interview said one of the reasons he didn't tell his wife or anybody, he said, because two people can keep a secret if one of them's dead. He was like,
that is
I don't want
correct.
anybody else to know where this thing
and
is.
when you do something like this with that value, even if he trusted his wife 100%.
I think it's to protect them too, because what if somebody kidnapped her and was I'll give her back if you tell me where that treasure is.
That's right. If she doesn't know, she doesn't know.
So he also, Forrest Fenn, self-published a book called The Thrill of the Chase. And in it, he included 9 clues about the treasure's location that are embedded in that 24-line poem I just read to you. It took him about 10 years to craft the poem.
So he had already planted and buried the treasure.
I think, I'm not sure of the exact order because I'm not sure. But
so it took him 10 years to craft the poem. It took him a while
to,
And then how did he share the poem? Did he write the book and then the book said go?
The search really took off in 2013 when Fenn appeared on the Today Show to generate buzz. And the book had been out, but the book sales spiked from sales of 25 copies per month to 25 copies per minute.
Stop.
Yes.
We all need a treasure in our lives.
Right?
We need the hunt.
Yes, we need a lottery ticket.
Is it about hope? Is it about
There's some psychological thoughts about that. I will say that by 2019, an estimated 350,000 people had searched for the chest. That's by 2019. So I don't know by now. On Facebook, there are huge groups where people discuss and debate clues. There are independently hosted forums. There are websites. There are blogs. There are YouTube channels. On Reddit, 14,000 people subscribe to /Finding Fenn's Gold. There are so many people that are these treasure hunters that are engaged in this. The idea is that once someone has solved the riddle, all they need is a quick boots on the ground trip, which the treasure hunters refer to as a BOTG. They all call it a BOTG, boots on the ground, to go retrieve the chest. And people come from all over the world for these BOTG trips, and families look for clues and hunt together like whole families.
And when you say a simple boots on the ground trek, they believe that it is within sight of a walking trail. It's not deep in the woods, way underground in the back of a cave.
What I get from that poem is that there's one line, I don't know if you remember, but it's it is a little too far to walk. It sounds but once you get to the place, you can walk to it. So you might have to drive or, I don't know, ride a donkey to a location.
I was going to say, are we on horseback? What are we doing?
Don't know. But it is,
wow.
Yeah. So for all the fun, the adventure, the community, the excitement, Fenn's treasure hunt does have a dark side to it. There are stories about searchers who have gone overboard. They've lost their savings, their homes, their marriages to the quest. I saw a video of a dude from Pennsylvania who looked a lot like Horatio Sands, who flew across the country and broke into Forrest Fenn's Santa Fe home with an axe because he thought that the clues in the poem led him there.
No.
And there's video from the arresting officer's body cam recording this whole thing. This is fully an officer with gun drawn because this guy's tried to break into this guy's home with an axe. And the guy who's the perpetrator is telling the officer that he thought the clues in the poem led him there. And as you can imagine, the officer hasn't listened to this episode of the Spark File. He has no idea what the guy's talking about, and he laughs. This goes from a cop with gun drawn to an officer. He laughs in disbelief, and he says, he goes, "You broke in here because of a poem? Are you serious?" It's one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. And then the officer goes, "Here's the thing, man. That's burglary, dude." And the guy's like, "Yeah, I know. I just want to show you a picture of his mugshot."
I need to see this man. Wow.
Yeah. He looks happy, doesn't he?
He does look happy.
That
he
dude
did pursue a calling.
He
in a
did.
way. Wow.
So according to this author, Stuart Vise, he's the author of a book called Going Broke, Why Americans Still Can't Hold On to Their Money.
Whoa.
The Fenn treasure hunt is likely addictive because it sits at this perfect intersection of several psychological factors, like the allure of making money without work, the element of adventure, and the perceived intelligence involved in solving the puzzle.
I was going to say, because it's not exactly without work. Like without work is like buying a lottery ticket or playing a slot machine.
Oh, this is an enormous amount of work. It's not a job, though.
It's not a job.
Not a job, but it's an enormous amount of people buy like the hiking equipment, the GPS, all-terrain vehicle that can get to a place,
Shovel.
the plane tickets, and
the shovel.
shovel.
A pick and a shovel.
I don't know that it's buried because he uses words like "I placed it." So
crazy. But how many years ago, though? So is it
he
overgrown?
placed it in 2010. That's right. The topography may have changed. What if there was a rock slide or an avalanche?
I'm curious. Does he ever go visit it to check? Because people could follow him, and that wouldn't be good.
That wouldn't be good.
He wouldn't be able to go check it.
Yeah.
Just curious.
And the consequences aren't just financial.
Oh.
Depending on who is counting, the number changes. But between 4 and 6 people have died trying to find the treasure.
No.
Yeah. People who are hiking, people who get lost and don't make it out, people who fall and fall 500 feet. And as a result, several law enforcement officials have publicly begged, pleaded, and demanded that Fenn retrieve the chest or call off the hunt. But Fenn has declined to do so. He said, "I want people to have fun and I want people to be adventurous." And he has stressed on several occasions that people need to take the proper precautions when venturing out. He said, "It's important to have someone with you anytime you go into the mountains. Family or friends at home should know your plan in detail, and you should stick to the plan. Proper clothing, a cell phone, GPS, food, and water are necessities." He also said that when he placed the treasure, he was 80 years old, and he did it by simply walking with no endangerment required. He has told followers not to look any place where an 80-year-old man couldn't put it.
Whoa.
Yeah. So, but here's the tricky part. When people are trying to figure out where, for instance, the home of Brown is, they are really adventuring out in the way that Forrest Fenn hoped that they would. They're getting out into nature. They're trying to, and sometimes that puts people in precarious positions, right?
Mm-hmm.
In 2016, in an interview, Fenn said he hopes the finder is a redneck from Texas who's lost his job with a pickup truck and 12 kids and a wife to support. Everyone can make this happen for them, no matter what their financial means are. Which that to me feels like it's playing on that lottery ticket sort of thing.
Right.
Deus ex machina, like if we can just find the treasure, all of this will turn around.
That's right. I'm this close. We're this close to finding it.
And we could go from complete rags to complete riches. The Fenn searchers don't like to focus on the deaths or the debts. Instead, people prefer to talk about how Fenn has reunited long-lost relatives, rekindled their love of the outdoors, and taught them skills that they'd never pick up otherwise.
I would imagine also in certain relationships that fare really well when you're working on a project together, like a puzzle, like things like that, that bring people together of like a shared challenge.
It seems like there's been a fair amount of, with this and with other, I saw it was called the Breakfast Tea and Bourbon Treasure Hunt. The treasure was, I think, worth $50,000 and it was solved by a family of 4. Just this family of 4 from Texas solved it. And the treasure you had to find was a flute that was a key point in the story. And it was buried along a hiking trail. And they determined where it was. And they went there and they said it was just like under some leaves. And they found it and they claimed the prize.
What a fun thing to do as a family.
Can you imagine? And to be able to say like, Oh yeah, I remember when I was growing up and my family, we found the treasure.
We all worked on this together.
It was
we found it together.
So
That's
sweet.
really neat. Are you saying there's a bunch of those that are like at that level,
out there?
10,000, 20,000, 50,000?
There are unsolved, at all levels, there are unsolved treasures waiting right now that people are trying to crack. Forrest Fenn said he hopes that in 2,000 years, a long time, Forrest Fenn, he hopes that in 2,000 years, someone finds the chest and they give it to the Smithsonian and the museum puts it on display and shares the story of the treasure hunt. And to your point, I feel like this is all about legacy.
It's legacy, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, just knowing you won't be forgotten.
Yes, which is,
right.
As we've discussed, is super meaningful to people.
Yeah.
Fenn, who is still alive, loves that people have gotten up and out of doors to enjoy the adventure of it. And for many, it is that thrill of the chase and the opportunity to explore that they love. And he continued by saying, we all have an Indiana Jones hidden inside of us.
Yes.
We want some adventure.
Yes.
Isn't that fun? Forrest Fenn. He's an interesting dude.
How old is he now? He must be 90
So
something.
he did it in 2010. He was 80. So he's he's peaking up to 90.
Wow.
He's getting up there. Yeah.
What a fun gift to give to the world.
Isn't
honestly,
it?
Really fun.
You might feel differently if you're somebody who has lost a person.
That's right.
But
that's true.
I have to say, and I'm not saying this to minimize that loss, but people who do like to go out into the wilderness and hike and live, accidents happen.
That's right.
And they may have happened anyway if those people were just out.
It could happen
camping.
In pursuit of something or not in pursuit of something.
So I do think that he has brought a lot of adventure and
Did
joy.
you say that he has kids or he doesn't have
He
kids?
does. He has 2 adult daughters.
So that's another reason, why maybe not to share with a lot of people, because everyone has their own agendas. You got to wonder.
He's got grandkids. He's got it.
Yeah.
That's right.
And
that's
you're
right.
like, guess what? I'm not leaving my money behind. I'm going to put it in a copper chest and hide it.
He even has people that work with him, like people who see him every day, who are searching for his treasure. They don't ask him where, they don't ask him for any clues. They just have this like mutual respect about it.
I wonder if the world would respect that though. If someone that he knows finds it, like would people cry foul?
Well, there are people that think the whole thing is a hoax.
Oh.
I don't though. I absolutely believe that treasure is out there. I don't think there's any reason why this person of great means, I don't think it's a hoax. You know what it also reminds me of? Ready Player One. It reminds me so much of Ready Player One, how there's all of these challenges.
Yes.
And I wonder if you could almost include Ready Player One. It's not part of that genre because there wasn't a real life treasure. Like you didn't get to take over that dude's company if you solved the riddles of Ready Player One.
Do they have a video game Ready Player One as well? Because
I don't know.
There's
a good spark.
That's
if they don't.
That's a missed
opportunity,
kind of right?
But what else? It's also like, what else do you make of this? I feel like if you're a 10 or 11-year-old, I don't know why you're listening to this podcast,
but welcome.
Make your own treasure hunt. If you're an adult, make your own treasure hunt. And the prize, as we were discussing earlier, could be day making or life changing.
That's right. Up
so
to you.
Fun.
Up to you.
Make a treasure map. Hide a treasure.
That was day making right there. That was awesome.
I also thought it might be fun to write not me, somebody. I thought it'd be fun for somebody to write a thriller, like a sort of a Da Vinci Code type thriller that is set in the context of a treasure hunt.
100%.
I thought that would be really...
That also reminds me of the real life treasure hunting that goes on off the coast of Florida. These are people that are searching for Spanish ships of gold.
Yes.
And they find them just often enough. People find them
to keep the dream alive.
Yeah. This is a bit of a spark, another spark I don't know if I'll ever get to. So I'll just share this now. Someone else can dive into it. But I think there was a story about someone who went into space. I don't know, like a famous astronaut.
Okay.
They can see the coast of Florida. They can see, from space, and apparently took notes on what they can see, because you can see if the water is clear enough, You can see objects.
Sparkly gold treasure.
Sparkly gold just sitting there. No, just, you know, shapes and things and figures that would at least help you narrow down where
Did they
ships may be.
pursue that?
Yeah, I think there was a show. I actually think I learned that from someone who was watching a show on History Channel or something. That astronaut left his notes and his map to like a family friend. And that's what they have to go on. And then they became treasure hunters based on that. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Amazing.
I don't know much more than that, but it fascinated me to know, like, if you can just get a tip, get enough of a hint, just a good solid lead.
I also thought it might be cool to write a novel, like you could write a novel set in the context of a treasure hunt that actually provides the clues to a real armchair treasure hunt.
So like as they go along.
Yeah. Like instead of embedding it in a poem or a picture book, like could it be in a novel about treasure hunting?
It sure could.
The other thing is these treasure hunters and the folks who make these treasures are such rich, interesting characters that could be really good models and templates for characters in any story you want to make. Like go listen to some interviews of Forrest Fenn. He is a interesting. The more I talk about this, the more I makes me want to research what the sparks were for Ready Player One, because there's some. I don't know. The guy that tried to break into Forrest Fenn's house because he thought the poem led him there. That dude's a character. Like there are so many interesting people with really fascinating stories. There was a woman I read about who, for her, she lives very near the Rockies. And for her, it's kind of just like a day trip. It costs about $50 in gas. And maybe if she buys herself lunch, that's the cost of her going to doing a boots on the ground. Yeah. And for her, it's a way for her it's a hobby and some peace for her because she has an autistic son. Like there's so many characters.
Some physical activity. Yeah. It's, if you're going to be out, if you're going for a hike anyway, you can engage your mind. It's like physical and intellectual.
Yeah. I just like the idea of making something too that brings so much life and so much adventure to other people.
Zest. So, why does the word zest come? It's like it just brings, I don't know, it like infuses a whole group of people with such energy and excitement.
Yeah. So Armchair Treasure Hunts. That is my spark for you today.
Are awesome, Susan. So good.
Oh, good.
That was so happy fun. I have a happy face. I love it.
All right, let's take a break.
Okay, let's take a break.
Isn't that interesting?
So interesting. Forrest
I've been brewing that spark for 40 years.
That is amazing. This one's not quite so matured.
This one hasn't been cooking as long? Okay.
Susan.
Yes.
Did you ever watch The Grinder? Do you know what that is?
Wait. Fred Savage?
It's Fred Savage and Rob Lowe.
And a lawyer. And I never watched it, but they had really good Subway posters.
Oh,
the Subway poster had a pun on it that was a laugh out loud funny.
It's so rare when a poster can do that.
Well, that poster did, and I don't remember what it was. But
all right, so this show it was a sitcom on Fox. It was on like 2015. And I think they only had like 1 or 2 seasons. And I'm sure I discovered it late, let's be honest. But oh my God, I love Rob Lowe so much.
Do you?
And Fred Savage.
I know you love Fred Savage.
Well, I know you watched Friends from College, right?
He delights me. Can Fred Savage come on this podcast?
Please, Fred, please.
He delights me.
Susan, if you loved him on that, you would love him so flipping much on The Grinder. But the premise of The Grinder is this. Like, the two of them are brothers. One is a lawyer. One plays a lawyer on TV. It's so concise and so perfect. Yeah. And as you might guess, it's Fred Savage who is the real lawyer.
Yes. Yeah.
And so is their dad. Yeah. And they're like small town law practice, divorces and custody cases and just like average, not super exciting types of cases.
Yeah.
And Rob Lowe is the brother who plays a lawyer on TV. And he has this hit show where he plays a lawyer called The Grinder. And it has all this pomp and circumstance, and he does all that bad acting with his glasses and dramatic courtroom speeches and theatrical antics to like prove his case. You know, it's like all of that. And the world knows him as that lawyer, like probably the way people know like Mark Harmon as a Navy guy from NCIS, you know, or Matlock or MacGyver or whoever. You're just like, oh, you are that guy. So you know the guy. And like Bull, the guy who's the guy who plays Bull.
Couldn't tell you.
But you know, it's that guy. So Rob Lowe, his TV show comes to an end. Are you laughing at something? Did you look something up?
I found the poster.
Oh my God. What is the poster?
The poster is the poster of Rob Lowe's TV character.
The Grinder.
And it says, Dean Sanderson is the Grinder. There's no one he can't get off. I saw that in the subway. It made me laugh out loud.
And probably true. So the Grinder TV show comes to an end. Grinder rests, which is also how he ended every courtroom. Grinder rests.
This is the best.
It's so ridiculous. So he doesn't know what to do with himself. So he heads back home. And while he's there, he kind of sees what his brother has going on. He's got a wife and kids and a small law practice, and he's with family. And like the whole lifestyle just suddenly appeals to him, kind of the way, you know, a Hollywood big shot might think that this little town is so quaint and so sweet, but it's more like a backdrop to a larger story. But he thinks he falls in love with it. So he's like, I think I'm going to stay here and I'm going to practice law. And as you can imagine, Fred Savage is like, but you're not a lawyer.
Horrified.
Not a problem. I did all this every day. You know, he's just like, you pick things up. You pick things up. So anyway, so Fred Savage is so amazing in this. So he can't believe this is happening, but nonetheless, his brother joins the team. He gives a flashy performance in the courtroom and they win a case. But
his brother's not
he's not a lawyer.
He's not a lawyer.
But he adds some spice to the whole thing. And then the small town is just like, oh my gosh, they're titillated.
Brings the sizzle.
You're the Grinder.
Yeah.
So now they're loaded with new cases and they need help. But Rob's character, of course, comes in and asks, I know we have a lot of cases, but how do these cases make us feel? And of course, Fred's like, what? Like, what do you mean? He's like, none of these cases are really speaking to me. We can't choose from these cases. We've got to wait for the right case to choose us. And Fred is literally just like, this can't be happening in my life. He's like, we can't just throw away these cases. Like, we'd go out of business. And Rob says, but what if we could? And Fred's like, we can't. But what if we could? And Fred is literally like, I don't even know how to respond to you when you're like, what is this line of questioning? But this line of questioning launches this whole theme for the episode. But what if it wasn't?
The question.
The question. The best way I can describe it is like, let's say you're in a burning building with the Grinder.
Yeah.
You're just
like,
looking for a door. We've got to get out. We're looking for a door.
The building's
you find
on fire.
a door. The door is locked. And his answer is, but what if it wasn't? Like, it doesn't fucking matter. It is locked.
Yeah.
It is factual. Wes and I still laugh at this like 3 years later. But what if it wasn't? And I was reminded of this the other night when I was watching a movie that couldn't be any further away from the Grinder if it tried.
Wait, is this your spark?
I'm getting to it.
That was the warm up.
Totally getting to it. No, this is what my spark.
Before we leave Rob Lowe behind, if that is
never.
where we're headed.
Oh, we'll circle back.
Okay.
Why must I map out my spark
You don't
in
have
advance?
to. I just want to make sure if the Rob Lowe train is leaving the station.
Yes.
You know Rob Lowe's from Dayton, Ohio.
Is he really?
And his dad is a lawyer.
Oh my God.
Yeah, practicing in Dayton, Ohio. He's probably retired by now.
Even more perfect.
But when we were in young, like freshmen in high school, we would prank call his dad's house.
No.
We totally would.
Because Rob was already a star.
Yeah.
And we at a very young age. Yeah.
And we would call, giggle, and hang
out.
Oh
my God.
Just wanted to have said that. Because his dad was in the phone book.
And Rob Lowe was in The Outsiders, right?
Yes, he was.
God, and I fell in love with
That
Matt
face.
Dillon in that period, but Rob Lowe was right up there too.
The Outsiders is one of those films where it's like there's something for everybody.
There really, really is something for everyone. My God.
Unless you don't love white guys, then there's probably
then not so
not
much.
something for you.
But I do think that Rob has gone on to show his capabilities as an actor, and in particular comedic
And
actor.
a comedian, yes.
Like, I think of him, sometimes I think of people who are like extraordinarily attractive, and a lot of times you meet them and it's perfectly fine, but sometimes you meet people who are that attractive, and I'm always left with a sense of like he's way kinder than he is required to be. And what I think I mean by that, I started saying that a while ago, just a couple of people that I met that I was like, they don't actually have to be that nice, because frankly, we live in a world where if you look like that, you can get by and do quite well for yourself without being a kind person.
Yeah.
But he is like an incredibly beautiful person who behaves like they have no idea how. But he must. And now he's able to like make fun of how he looks and make fun of all of that.
He's had an amazing career.
Truly, truly amazing. Yes. So I was reminded of this, but what if it wasn't, the other night when I was watching a movie that really could not be further from The Grinder if it tried. I decided to watch All Is True. Do you remember this movie?
No.
It's from last year. I should say it's from 2018. No, that's a lie. It's from early 2019.
Okay.
It's Kenneth Branagh. It's Judi Dench. And it's the story of Shakespeare after the Globe Theater burnt down, when like a stage cannon went off mistakenly. I don't know if you know, the Globe Theater burnt down near the end of Shakespeare's career.
Oh.
So it was he was not only an incredible playwright and made a fortune doing that, but he also was an entrepreneur in a way. Like he had an unprecedented amount of control, like as a part owner in the Globe Theater. He worked his way up to that. So that meant,
so he
more
was
money.
He was like the greatest playwright of all time, and he was also a Nederlander.
Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
He was a Schoenfeld. Yeah,
exactly that.
It's amazing.
And then his theater burnt down, and there's some people who believe like he didn't write after that, but it's unknown because a lot of his plays don't have a date for when they were first
and maybe he
written.
just was older.
Yeah, and he was older, and some people believe though that he wrote several more plays that were collaborations with other people. But Kenneth Branagh imagines a scenario where we see Shakespeare in this part of his life that frankly we haven't, like, I feel like Shakespeare is so everywhere that people have a sense like, I know him, I know what that's about, I know what that story is, I got it. When in actuality, there's parts of his life that really haven't been shown like in that way. Of course, there was like Shakespeare in Love long ago that I think Gwyneth Paltrow won an Oscar for her performance. This would be a little bit more like Shakespeare in retirement. Fascinating. And you can see why people tuned right in. But
where can we watch this?
I watched it on Prime.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's on Amazon
Prime.
Okay. Say the name of it again.
All Is True.
All Is True. Okay.
All Is True was also an alternate title for Henry VIII, one of Shakespeare's plays.
You're kidding?
No.
I thought you were going to say up for like All's Well That Ends Well or something like that.
Oh, no. For Henry VIII, it was
Is True.
All Is True.
Did it mean all was true in that play?
I think it plays on the idea of what
Okay.
is true as it does in this movie.
Got it.
Just
Okay.
super, super interesting. So in this particular movie, they posit that Shakespeare headed home to Stratford-on-Avon after the fire, after the theater burnt down, and he kind of retired. And there he reunited with his wife and children, who he had kind of abandoned, frankly. Like throughout his lifetime, this is true. He had a wife and 4 kids, but he was mostly in London.
He was busy.
He set them up with a beautiful home and a lovely life, but he was like, having him back in the house was like having a guest. They're like, oh, well, okay. And you're staying? You sure you're not headed back to London in a week?
Sure. Disrupting our rhythms.
So it's interesting. The historical records are a little bit spotty for the 1500s, as you can imagine. So they leave a lot of details about Shakespeare's life in the realm of uncertainty. So anytime any storyteller, frankly, is depicting this most famous playwright of all time, they're all kind of tapping into a broad collective agreement of like, we don't know for sure about these things, but millions of studies have been done, and this is the best we can piece together. So we'll agree this is probably what happened. But what if it isn't? So Kenneth...
Quote the grinder.
But what if it isn't? So in this film, I'm just going to call him Ken. Ken used enough like detail of Shakespeare's life as we know it, the plays in London, his creative success, etc., and then put him in a time of his life that we know less about.
Mm-hmm.
And the various details of this part of his life bring an entirely different story to light. One of the details that was fascinating to me is that it highlighted the fact that his wife and his daughters could not read or write. That was common in the time, or they might be able to read to a certain degree, but couldn't write for sure.
Whoa.
Because women weren't taught to write. So at one
Oh
point,
my God.
I mean, just think about it. Actually, that just gave me chills. At one point, Judi Dench, so he comes back into their lives, and she is a little bit like, "You'll take the guest room," because it's pretty
Judi
much
Dench
what
is
you are.
playing his wife?
Mm-hmm.
You're kidding.
No, Why?
Amazing. Who's playing Shakespeare?
Kenneth Branagh.
Because that's fascinating.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But his wife was older than him,
okay.
and
I gotta see this movie.
you need to see this movie. It's really, really good. So at one point, his wife mentions, like, it's all in the context of like, do you have any idea of what our life has been like here? Like, you're off in London, you're doing your thing. And have you ever considered what it would feel like for me to be married to the world's greatest writer and I can't read a single word? That just got me. It was a really, really interesting take on that.
That
and
is.
He explores it in a number of ways.
I've never thought of a scenario existing like that.
Right?
Yeah.
And we know so much about Shakespeare, and we've never seen this perspective. So the fact that his daughter can't write also becomes part of a larger storyline involving his only son who died. And parts of this is true. Parts of this they know are true. But what's true is he had a son named Hamnet. Not Hamlet, but Hamnet.
Mm-hmm.
And he died when he was 11 years old. Mm. That is true. But this is where Ken really gives me some grinder. What if he didn't? Because the biggest what if he didn't in this story, it's sort of commonly believed that Shakespeare's son died of the plague at 11 years old. Mm-hmm. And Shakespeare wasn't in town when it happened. That is all true. Mm-hmm. He was actually on his way back home from London.
Oh my God.
So he didn't even get the message that his son died.
Oh my God.
And they went ahead and buried his son. Oh. So he arrives home and his son has died and buried. Oh. So that all happens in this movie as well. But it's years and years later at this time when he's retiring. And he's like, now that he's back, he's really truly allowing himself to mourn. And his family is like, well, so glad you could join us. We mourned Hamnet's death years ago.
Wow.
But glad you have the time now to relive this and like dredge it all back up for us. And he was like, I mourned at the time. And Judi Dench was like, at the time you wrote Merry Wives of Windsor, which is interesting and also true. So here he is in the movie, living his son's death and what he knew of it. And they show his character, Shakespeare, visiting the register that records like the burials at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford. And that is true. And that is the register that listed his son's death. And Shakespeare, the character in the movie, sees his son's name among like 9 people maybe that died in a 6-month period. And it's enough to get him wondering when what he knows of the plague, like the last time it came through town, 200 people died.
Yeah.
And here his son is only one of a few people in 6 months. He's starting to feel like, what if he didn't? Like he didn't die of the plague. And the storyline that he develops in this film is more of a, hey, how did he actually die? And he confronts his family, and they eventually admit that they've been lying to him. They admit that the son that he thought was a genius.
Hashtag spoilers.
Spoilers. Sorry. The son that he thought was a genius because he thought he showed like incredible writing skill. The son actually killed himself because of the pressure he felt to try to be as great as his father.
At 11?
At 11, when he wasn't even writing the stuff, it was his sister that was coming up with it, and he was only writing it down because he was the one taught to write. And
so guilt that it wasn't even his original thought.
Wasn't his work. His dad would find out that he wasn't good at all. So Ken manages to create an entire storyline about what if. Like, what if it didn't happen the way we thought it happened?
Wow.
What if there's more there? And he manages to make a point about like the tragedy of female children who might also have been geniuses, never being able to be taught to read and write.
This reminds me also of the loss of children who didn't make it out of childhood, like the children in Brundabar, that sort of thing.
That's right.
The lost potential, and that loss could come through death.
That's right.
Or it could come through not having the support, the education, the resources,
the voice
to bring those natural gifts to the surface and to light.
That's right. That's right. How many voices have we lost?
Yeah.
So I love how he used this sort of technique, like, here's a collective agreement we've made about a person who lived 400 years ago. Mm-hmm. But what if it wasn't? What if it didn't happen that way? Right?
I'm sorry every time you say it. It's like, now it has a profundity to it.
Right?
I just keep hearing Rob Lowe's voice.
It's so
but
good.
What if it didn't?
And so this spark sparked that old spark. And I think about it in terms of like using this as a creative tool. Here's some other examples. So in Kenneth's All Is True movie, it was like a small crack, and he picked at it and he peeled it back and asked this very specific question. Among all these things that are true, he asked a specific question, but what if it wasn't, about one detail, and took the story in another way. But it doesn't have to be a small crack. It can be a big, big, big old thing. Like there's a show on Netflix, The Man in the High Tower, which takes the idea of, but what if they didn't, and applies it to World War II.
What if the Nazis didn't lose the war?
That's right. What if the U.S. and our allies did not win?
Camion.
What if they didn't?
This spark has this long fuse, but this is so good. This is, I am sparking so hard. Can I say something?
Yes.
I think it was Brian Eno maybe made this deck of creativity cards. And if you're ever, I think it was Brian Eno. I have to double check that. Yeah. But if you're ever like in a creative process and you're not sure where to turn next, you like draw a card and just follow the very simple directive on the card. And one of the things is like, do the opposite.
That's
like
right.
Whatever you're doing, do the opposite. And I've always thought that was so powerful. Just be like, what is to discern what the opposite is of what you've been doing when you're knocking your head against a creative wall. And this is a cousin to that, which is like, but what if it didn't? What if it wasn't? What if, like, it's a little bit like, what if we flip it and reverse it.
I want to give you a few more examples and then talk further about like how you can apply it, because yes, to all of that. So the movie Yesterday toyed with the idea that the Beatles were the greatest band to ever exist. But what if they didn't exist?
Except for one person.
Except one person. So what if they didn't exist?
Yeah.
Their music still does. Like that has a complexity to it.
Yeah.
It's not that their music didn't exist, but let's say they didn't.
Yeah.
And then what happens? Quentin Tarantino's recent movie, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I think I talk about this in another episode. I'm sorry to dwell on it.
You dwell on it by mentioning it 2 times.
Dwelling it. I can't stop. But he took our collective knowledge of like what happened on the night that Charles Manson told his crew to go out and murder people in a particular house. In this case, Sharon Tate and her unborn child and anyone else that was in the house. And he tells them to go to that specific house. Well, what if they didn't? And so this entire movie is built upon, we meet those characters, we meet other characters.
Is that what, I never saw that movie. Is that?
Yes.
Okay.
And they turn out to be a bit of bumbling idiots and they go to the wrong house. And instead of killing people, they get their asses whooped. It's a Tarantino movie.
Oh.
Also spoilers, sorry. But it's a completely different ending to that story. And there are a lot of plays and films and novels with what they call alternate history. And I would like to pause here and make a very clear distinction. This is not to be confused with alternative facts or alternate facts. I think that's the only thing that troubles me about this game is like when we're playing it for art to make a point, like to wonder about something. It can be the source of
great creativity.
That's right. But if we're using it in real time, just as an example, flat earthers.
Yeah.
You could create a piece of art, an entire world, a sci-fi movie or a novel or a sculpture where the world is actually flat. And we explore the consequence of that and what it means to live on a flat earth. And that in a fictional way could be very stimulating and very interesting, but is very different from actually believing that our
climate
world.
Change deniers, anti-vaxxers, all of this alternative facts.
That's right.
Playing out in real life can have real troubling consequences.
That's very negative. But I think in terms
creatively, it's very stimulating.
That's right.
That's a really good distinction, Cams.
Thanks. Thank you, Susan. I love it. I like the videos. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but people create videos about like, what if the Sandy Hook shooting didn't really happen? I think that's using the but what if it didn't power for evil instead of for good. Yeah. So I digress, but that's a very, very worthwhile digression. I think it's important to be conscious of what we're using it for. Yeah. So there's a million examples of how but what if it wasn't have been used in like storytelling.
Funny, you're right. Is there a name for it as a convention?
I think alternate reality is like a genre of things. But I think there are degrees within it.
Yeah.
Like what I'm talking about, like
because there's
alternate reality.
A little peppering of it, and it's used for comic effect, repeated in the grinder. And then you have something like The Man in the High Tower.
That's right. That's a complete different reality.
A whole series is based.
Or Back to the Future.
Back to the Future.
Back to the Future. You've created a reality where time travel is possible.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But then you have All Is True, where it's like such a gray shading of like, what if something we didn't know in the first place? What if it went slightly in this direction or slightly in that direction rather than an entire world changing? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think
this is such an interesting, sparkly spark.
I cannot wait for you to watch the episode because I'm teeing it up. We're going to watch that.
Of the grinder?
You have to watch it. It's episode 2 of season 1, and it's available on Amazon Prime.
Did they do 2 seasons?
I think they did.
I can't wait to watch it.
I think they did 2 seasons. Aww. It's so good. And Fred Savage. But I also think, to your point about those cards, I also think that it can be a great exercise when you feel stuck, maybe as an actor in your scene work, maybe as a writer in your character development, like in a novel or a screenplay. I think it's really fun to question what you think you know about your character and use this question to play with it. Like if you had imagined your character as super confident and you're playing them as like confident and cocky, what if he isn't? What if all these lines that seem confident are actually covering over enormous
I feel
insecurities?
Like I can't pull one out of my ass just off the cuff, but I think that some great film and television performances do this, where they have a character that would typically be played in a particular way.
Yep.
And a really gifted actor will be able to sort of like flip it and do it in a way that you're like, oh man, it's so, it's not just inventive for the sake of being inventive. It feels more like real life because it isn't like what I call, it's not from the island of Robert Stack, meaning it doesn't have that like high pro glow TV film polish to it.
That's right.
Do you know what I mean?
I do. It's complexities.
Yeah.
It's levels.
Yeah.
And subtext.
Surprising.
And like another example might be like when you have a character that's supposed to make an apple pie, you assume he or she knows how to make the apple pie. But what if she doesn't? What if every item you pick up, you have to figure out how do you use this before you do it? I mean, that's an independent activity for you right there.
Yeah.
First, you have to figure out, like, I don't know how this batter machine works.
Yeah.
So just what if there are no givens, essentially?
Yeah.
So there's so many ways you can use, but what if it wasn't? You can dream up big, huge alternate realities, or you can get your character unstuck in a situation, or just force yourself to think differently about a topic that you thought you knew. And I personally really like the super subtle ones because you can take a story like Shakespeare's life in All Is True, and you can still develop new stories out of old tales by simply applying that question in key places, maybe only one place or maybe every place.
Yeah.
But what if they didn't? But what if they aren't? And make a new story.
I love it.
So I think that, Ken did a great job in finding a part of Shakespeare's life that's less examined and very deftly weaves this like surprising new storyline in there that could possibly be true. Say it with me. But what if it wasn't?
Get me. How interesting is that?
It's so much fun. I went back. I've watched that episode now 3 more times. It delivers. That sitcom really, really delivers.
Oh.
And I remember reading about it being canceled. Yeah. I wasn't ever, I just don't watch TV in that way of faithfully. But when I discovered it, I loved it. But I looked back and saw articles of everyone being shocked when it was canceled. And there was a period of time they thought they'd bring it back and, all of that drama. And I guess they didn't. But
The Grinder and What If It Wasn't? I love it. Another spark that I had when you were talking, something that I don't feel like we've talked a ton about on this podcast, and it may be another spark for another day. When you were talking about the life of Shakespeare, either the fictional version that Brana is presenting in that film, All Is True, or the real human being who is as historically researched as possible, the thing that rang with me was the cost of creativity. What is the cost if you're William Shakespeare and you are creating the most lasting, considered the best writing that's ever been created, and you have this legacy that lives on until probably the zombie apocalypse?
That's right.
That's amazing. But what about the wife? What about the children that are left,
That's right.
kind of left behind?
It's interesting that you brought that up because, again, spoilers, but he does explore in a small way through the tensions that the family feels now having him back. And he's humble and apologetic for a while. And then he does have an outburst of like, am I expected to apologize for the amount of success that I have, for this talent that I have, for what I've accomplished? He has an incredible clap back at someone in town. I'll let you enjoy that.
An incredible classical clap back.
I mean, it's amazing. I almost took it down word for word. It was fucking amazing. But
I gotta watch this movie.
He has a fellow playwright come and visit him. It's Ben Johnson, I think.
Sure,
Also,
that sounds right.
also quite well known, but they have a conversation about like, hey, you've made it. And he's like close to death at this point. And he's like, well, I don't know about that. And Ben's like, no, you did, because you made it back home. He's like, look at me. I'll be alone when I die, and who knows if my work will survive, but I'll be alone. So-and-so's in jail. So-and-so died alone. So-and-so lost all of his money. Like all of these other ways that you can have great success and then come to an ending that's maybe not as satisfactory.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm going to get a little bit choked up, but he's like, you made it home and you're surrounded by your family and love and people who appreciate you as a person.
Yeah.
In addition to your work. He did a good job. I mean, who knows if that actually happened? But
what if it wasn't?
But what if it wasn't? All is true.
It's that is the dream, though, isn't it? I hate the term. I really don't like the term "have it all." I really don't like that. But to have a life, it's what I aspire to have a life where there is an enormous amount of creativity and self-expression, and also have wonderful friends and family to share it with.
That's right.
That's the shit.
Yeah. And Ken really gave us a movie that lets us imagine that Shakespeare got to enjoy that in addition to his massive success. It's pretty
and Fred
interesting.
Savage and Rob Lowe gave us The Grinder and many other wonderful pieces of entertainment. I know I love Fred Savage.
Rob Lowe, Fred Savage, thank you so much.
Shakespeare.
Please come on our show. We'd love you.
Shakespeare, we'd love to have you on the Spark File. If you're listening, you might be.
Please.
We don't know how.
Can we call you Will?
Oh man, what a good spirit.
So fun.
I have enjoyed this episode of the Spark File.
Me too.
That's it. We hope that this put another bunch of sparks in your file. Hey, if there's a spark you'd like us to explore, or if you've taken a spark and fanned it into a creative flame and you've made something with it and you'd like to share that, won't you please write to us at thesparkfile@gmail.com, or even better, submit it through our website, thesparkfile.com.
We will even take your feedback. We'd love it. But you know the price of admission. First, you got to share a creative risk that you've taken recently.
Oh, hey.
Hey.
Be sure to subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe, rate it, 5-star review it. If you like this podcast, this is a sincere request.
Seriously.
Won't you please share it with people that you love? We love making it and we work so hard on it, and we would love it if you would share it with people who you love. And if you didn't like it, what happened to you, big guy? Who hurt you?
God. Oh my God. Oh God. If something tickles your fancy and gets your creative juices flowing, this is it right here. We are writing you a forever permission slip to make that thing that has been knocking at your door. It's your turn to take a spark and fan it into a flame.
You got to draft it. You got to craft it. You got to hide a little treasure so folks can white rod or raft it.
You got to take it and make it. I'm going to whitewater raft it.
I barely got that out.
What's wrong with you, big guy?
When I bump into something that inspires me, I dump it in my spark file. Could be something that I want to make or how I want to be. I pump it in my spark file. I jump into my spark file. Let's open up the spark file.
Hi, friends. Susan Blackwell from the Spark File here to let you know that the doors are open for the Spark File Illume, a 9-month group creativity coaching mastermind that invites you to be the chief creative officer and chief marketing officer of your creativity. But what does that mean? That means in 9 months in Illume, you will clarify and advance your big creative goals and learn how to effectively share your work with the world. Now, if you're listening to this and you're an experienced creative or an an accomplished professional who seeks a space where it is safe to attempt something you've never tried before, or complete a big creative project, or take your work to the next level and acquire the skills needed to share your creative work with the world, Illume might be right for you. We are calling in emotionally intelligent, high-functioning creatives who are ready to level up. You can find out more by going to thesparkfile.com/Illume, but do it now to find out if Illume is right for you and to save with early bird discounts. That's thesparkfile.com/Illume. Take a leap, take a risk. Go to thesparkfile.com/Illume and join us for Illume.